All right, I think we can start. Morning, everyone. Today we will continue working on the same project, reminder application. And today we will complete the implementation of time reminders. We will schedule the reminders on the given time and do some action on that specific time. Today we'll have a bit more work than usual. So I would have more time to answer your questions and do breaks in between. Starting from the next session, Kennedy will start geolocation, and so we'll tell you how to make the location-based reminders. So today we need to complete the time reminders. Don't worry if you cannot follow on time. The recording of the lecture of the lab will be on Moodle. So if you need later on, you will be able to follow that. But let's start. The source. Okay, so quick recap what we have done on the previous session. We have made the list view of the elements. Here in the list we use for now dummy data. Today we would need to save some data from ourselves to the database, and we need to inflate it and show it here. As well, we created this table reminder class, which actually represents the table that we're using in the application, and the database class, which represents the database. So for now, let's go to activity time.xml, the user interface file of the time activity class. Moment. So here we need to have the two pickers, one for date picking and another for time picking. For now we have here text, you can just delete it. And you can try to find, for example, don't work that way. Yep, it's not working that way for some reason. So we need to use the XML code itself. So let's type time picker here. And for width and height, we can use wrap content. Let's specify ID right away. So let's name it time picker. Activity time XML, yeah. So you see, for some reason, there is no this widget here, so we cannot just drag and drop it, and we have to type it manually. Yep.
What was the layout of the
yeah, I'll get back here from time to time, so you can check. The Android Studio tells that we need to put constraints here, so let's put some. 3 would be enough. And let's put date picker here. Again, wrap content and wrap contents. And ID would be date picker. We need to put constraints so it would be visible. Let's just simply put it under the time picker. Yep. And to show how it looks, I will run it on emulator. Yep, sure. Yeah, one more thing from previous lecture. We have problems with some students. The problem was that this text was not visible. We had the 3 entries as well, but the text was not here. The problem was actually that the text was here, but the color was in white, on white background. How it looks, I can go back. Yeah, for this list view item, if you have this problem, just put for text view text color is black for this hex code, and then it will show. On some different versions of Android, it happens that the manufacturer specifies own settings and put text in different colors. So if the text was in white, just made it black. Right. So how the time activity looks now. So we have here this time picker, which we obviously will use for picking the time when we want to show the notification, and date picker here. Usually these components are implemented in several screens, in several activities. Again, for sake of simplicity, we want to have all into one screen, which is not optimal, not regular, but we want to keep it simple, let's say this way. So let's make these widgets to view like oldish and the way how it looks before on previous versions of Android. So let's just for time picker make it spinner. For that picker we can make it spinner as well. And let's see. One more thing. Here we put as calendar view shown as false. So why we did it is just obviously because, well, we need some space here. Of course, we can make the elements scrollable, so they will fit also into one activity. But just to make the UI smaller, because you cannot change the modern date pickers and time pickers in density pixels or in pixel size. So they always request some specific amount of screen. So just to make it more smaller, let's make it spinner. Once again, for making time picker smaller, you select time picker mode spinner, and for date picker you make it similar date picker mode spinner and calendar view shown as false. So it's in the endpoint it will look like that. So these two will be used to specify the date and time when we set up the reminder. And we now want to have some text that reminder will show. For that, we need edit text widget. So you can find edit text from here, and you can find, for example, plain text would be okay for us. So we just drag, drop it, put constraints, at least one on vertical and one on horizontal, right? And we need some button that we will use to submit and to make entry to database. So select button, drag and drop it here, and we're done. Again, put constraints. Right. I can show it from here. So we have edit text. Let's rename it somehow. So for example, here it will represent the message of the reminder. So let's name it edit text message. And let's name this button as, for example, time create, which refers to creating time reminder. For text, we can change it submit or save or whatever text you want. For here, instead of using texts, we can use hint. So I can show you the difference. So text is the actual text which we type into edit text. Hint is this text which is it's text. Run it, so it will be more clear what's I'm showing. So the idea now is we go to time activity. We specify time, for example, 9:30 a.m. tomorrow. I want to have some reminder, so I save it. And once I click submit, I want it to go to database and get back here, and it should be shown here in the list. Is everyone able to follow me for now? All right, sorry. All right. Well, nothing special yet. Time pickers, date pickers, edit text button. Let's make. Yeah. If any questions, just raise your hands and we'll help. Sure. We can just, so now we and we have that people that we do edit text and over here, there is not this time figures so just try to copy that.
But usually it's a spread name that
Just try to
yes, absolutely.
Okay, so what about now? Is everyone able to follow? Okay,
Sorry.
it's fine. Don't worry, like nothing special happens here. Date picker, time picker, edit text will be used for entering the text, and button for entering submit. You don't need to copy paste the code from here like line by line. It's not that important, for example, to have the margin as 36 or EMS for 10, which is like size. It's fine if you have just the skeleton which works. You have these elements, so later on you will be able to refer to that. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like.
I mean, the UI is completely up to you. For example, the order, how it looks, you can change, and these are mandatory. The margins can be different, the text you can use whatever you want. So what I'm telling that you don't need to have exactly the same code as it's on the screen now. You need to do constraints. So you just need to specify the order. Anyone still have questions about it? All right. Then we continue. So for now, we need, by clicking on that button, we need to create the time, the moment when this event will happen, and we need to save this text here. So we need start from the button. So we go to time activity class. Here we need to make the listener for time create from activity external. Set and click listener. Okay. So here what we need to create an instance of calendar, which refers to Gregorian calendar. Yeah, I can show moments. So once again, for the changing color of text, you need to go to list view item, which represents the XML file for the rows. And the problem was that the text was in white, so you just need to specify text color and set it to black. All right, so we need to create an instance of Gregorian calendar. Let's name it calendar. So, and here we need to get all the values that have been selected into time activity. So we select date, from date picker we select the year. From date picker we again select the months. And we select the day of months. From the time picker we retrieve the current hour and we retrieve the current minute. In the meantime, while you type in once again, so this creates an instance of Gregorian calendar, which the class that works with all the time or calendar-based events. And we need to specify what's actually the moment in the calendar we want to select. So we retrieve the values from here. So for this year, we get the value from spinner, and similarly for the months, for the date of months, for the hour, for the minute. So in the endpoints, when we would save this, we would save the selected, for example, 7th of May 23rd, 8:45. And now let's create a reminder, which refers to reminder that we created on the last session. So last session we created this data class reminder, which have number of the entry, time, location, and message. For now, we don't need location, we have only time. So let's create reminder. So it's value, reminder, and inside round brackets, we need to specify. So user ID is the one that created by the system itself, so we don't need to specify it, so just put null to here. For time, we need to have the calendar event that we created on the top, and we will save the time in milliseconds. For location, as I told, we don't need it, so it will be null. And message is the thing that we retrieve from this edit text. So from this, we refers to edit text message, which is the name of the edit text from XML. We need to get text from it, and we need to save it as string, and that's it. All right. So,
Wait.
yep, I'm not, I'm just again recapping. So what we have done, we specify that by clicking on that create button, we would retrieve all the entries from date pickers, from time pickers, as an instance of calendar element, and then we create a reminder instance of reminder data class that we created before as the table reminder here. And we just create an instance of reminder with the given time and with the given message. Now we need to save it to database. And the specifications of the room database that we are using here in the project is that I'm not sure that everyone is known, but still the interface, the thread that works with interface and the thread which works with database should be separately because we need to make it separate so the user interface will be responsive all the time, and we need to save we need to have the code that saves the reminder to database. It has to be asynchronous. So for that, we do just simply do async, and we would have to have some code inside that. So we create an instance of database, which the database of room, and we need to create database builder. We need to push here 3 elements here. First is context, it's application context. Second is the name of the database class. In our case, it's application database class Java. And the last one is the name of the table. In our case, it's the table was named reminders, as from here. So look like that. So we created a reference to database. Then we need to make an entry to database. So database dot doing something wrong. Okay, let's try. So database dot reminder. Oh, I hope I'm not missing something. But I do. I think I'm missing something. Let me check. A moment. Yeah. You need also to add build here. Yeah, and then it works. So in the reference, you specify room, database builder, you push 3 elements here, first context, second name of the database, third name of the table, and then you make build. And after that, you use this reference, you specify the reminder DAO, which refers to the list of queries that we have specified in table reminder class. And now we need to make insert. Just obviously push reminder here, which refers to reminder. So to the table reminders, we push the element named reminder, which consists the time from the calendar, which refers to the selected date, selected time, and typed message here.
Why those time picture, current hour, current minute, hour?
You mean crossed?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's deprecated, and again, it's not that optimal. In ideal, it should be like that. So when you use our, but you see that it's underlined and tell that calls require API level 23. I think we selected 21 or something like that. In my case, it's 19. Well, when you have this, you need to surround with check-in for versions and blah, blah. But again, for making it more simple, because this code will work, but this code is not optimal. All right. So we have created the reference. We have inserted the data. Now we need to create. Now we need to close the database. So just call database close, and we can finish this activity. Just type finish, and let's see how it looks. So I go to main activity. For example, for tomorrow for 10:50, I want to schedule something. Right. And when I click submit, it should go to the database, and it's done. There is this thing in Android Studio named Device File Explorer. Let me just check if I can show you what I want. All right. So you can retrieve the database from Android Studio. Never mind, I just show how it looks. So that's the database that is on our phone site. Never mind about Russian text, it's not anymore. So we have the table which was shown on the previous session as well. The table with 4 columns, UID, time, location, message. And we have one entry, which is number 1. The time is time in milliseconds, and the message is hello. We haven't put anything for location because we don't need it for now. Right. Okay. Is everyone able to follow? That's what we have for now. Good. When we design this thing, we need to take into account actually what we insert into database. For example, we want to schedule this to be shown in the future time, but we obviously cannot schedule, for example, to show that tomorrow. So we want to make sure that every time we click on submit button, we save something that happens in future, not for yesterday or 1 month ago. And we want to make sure that this text contains something, so we will be able to show something actually to user. For that, we need to check that our entries are not actually null or something like that. So in time create, set on click listener, we need to make if condition and check if the text actually exists. So first, we want to make sure that the message from edit text message is not null. So we retrieve text from here. by simply calling edit text message text to string. And we need to make sure that these are not empty. And then we want to have another condition that checks whether the time is not for future. So here we specify that calendar. Yeah, I did it in the wrong. So first we retrieve the calendar event, and then we do this checking. So first we check that the text is not empty, and then we check that the time, each time in milliseconds, and we compare to the current time of the system. So if both of these are true, the text is not empty and the time will happen actually in future, we want something to happen. In our case, we want to save this reminder to database. So this code that we had as reminder and asynchronous call for database, you just cut it and put into this condition. So how it will work? Every time that we'll click time on create button, we will check what the time selected on the pickers. And then we will see if this happens for future. If we have some text, we push it to database. If it's not, then we can show something to the user. For example, we can just simply show toast. And let's write it for now, run data. Or you can toast it like reminder cannot be scheduled, or select time for future, write some text, something like that. And let's see. So let's create something for tomorrow, but with empty text. So when I click, I see run data and nothing goes to database. Or for example, I want to create something for January this year. I have some text here. It's obviously again don't work because we cannot schedule something for the past. All right. Next, we will retrieve data from database, show it in main activity. So let's give like 3 minutes. If something is behind, just follow this or raise your hands. You can help. And then we will show that data that we enter to database. We will show it here instead of dummy data.
What did you say that in the edit text that you just?
Yeah.
How did you put that?
Simply by writing a hint. You remove the text.
Yes.
So probably I missed it. So the hint refers to this hint text. The difference is when you type something here, it disappears and your text appears. If you, for example, have text here, I can show. If you would have text here, when you put cursor, it actually shows the text. So hint is just a good practice to show some text which disappears when you start typing something. questions, anyone? Right. If there are no questions, we continue. So for now, we need to show the data that we save from here. We need to show it here. Instead of this dummy text, we need to have some text that we retrieve from database, and we need to unpack it and show it in the list. So let's do this. So how we do it? First of all, we need to retrieve the data from the database. So as I told, we do asynchronous call to database. So we type do async, and inside curly brackets, we create an instance of database. Again, it's room, database builder, application contexts, name of the database class, .java, name of the table, .build. And then, by using this reference, I did it wrong. We need to create a list of reminders. And by calling the reference .reminder.dao, we call getReminders, which refers to the query that we have created on the last session. It returns the list of reminder elements, and it's simply just retrieve every single value in the database. So we have this list. We don't need the database references anymore, so we just close. And we need to update in user interface threads, which happen separately. We need to create adapter element, which is reminder adapter, again, the thing that we created on the previous session. We need to push two parameters here. One is application context, and another is the list of adapters, the list of some data. Right. Then we just need to use the list view that was created in main activity, the list of elements, and set as adapter the adapter that we have created today. Okay. Yeah, one more thing. When we update the user interface, we need to make sure that reminders are not empty. So for example, when we run the application for the first time, the database will be empty. Or when we have removed all the data from database, it also will be empty. In that case, we want to show something to user by telling that there is no data here. So when we call this UI thread, let's make it a bit more complex. Just make another if condition. Check that these reminders are not empty. So if it's not empty, if it has some elements, then we update the UI. If it's not, we again want to show something to user. In our case, it's just simply toasts. So something like that. So when we open the application, we will see if there is some data or not. If there is some data, we will show it at a list. If there is no any data, we will show just those that tells, well, we don't have any data. All right. We see that the reminders is underlined and there is some error here. The problem is that in our reminder adapter class that we have created on the last session, as an entry point with the data, we use array of strings. But for now, it's not array of strings anymore. We have created this, we have changed this last time because we created this dummy array, which was array of strings. Now it's list of reminders. So you go to reminder adapter class, and for the type of list element, you change it to list of reminder. All right. Now there is an error here. When we put some text, it refers to, well, now we have the list and we specify this specific reminder. You see that found reminder. So we need to specify what type of reminder value we want to put it. So we have here options as location, message, time, UID. So for the text that represents the message, we need the message. And for the time, for the trigger, we want to have to show the time. So we write list, position, and select time. Yep. And instead of char sequence, we want to, well, I'm telling it wrong. The value in database is in long type, which is numerical, but we need to show it as text. So just put it to string. Okay, and we're good. All right. There is no error here anymore. Or there is. Yeah. Previously, we have created this dummy data, and we have created this reminder adapter list adapter. We have created here it again. So the one that we used before, you can just simply remove it. And that's it. So let's see how it looks now. So you see now that there is now these 3 dummy values anymore. There is text that we have created, and there is these numerical values, which refers to time in milliseconds. We will make it later on more readable, but for now it looks like this. Another thing, for example, if I want to clear only all the entries in database, let me just do it. All right. So now we don't have any data. I removed it from the phone. So once we open the application, let's say it first time, you see that there is no reminders yet message. And when we create something, for example, that, and we specify it for tomorrow, click save, it goes to database. But it's not shown here. And the problem is, for example, when I kill the application and I open it again, it appears. So what's wrong is that this piece of code, which refers to retrieving the data from the database and updating user interface, was created in onCreate methods. OnCreate method is called only, obviously, one time when the activity is created. But when we click this save button from here, and it opens the main activity again, it doesn't call onCreate anymore, because this activity was already created. It was just in the background, but we resume it. So what we want to do now, we first want to we need to specify once again onCreate methods in our application. So simply just type onCreate, oh sorry, resume. Make sure that you are doing it out of onCreate. So onCreate and onResume are different things, different methods. So when the onCreate is ended, when it's closed with curly bracket, you need to create onResume. And we need to do something here. So let's just create a function, private function, and let's name it refresh list. All the code that we have used here for database call, this asynchronous call and updating of UI thread, you can just cut it, because we don't need to call it in onCreate. We will call it in onResume every time, and paste it here in refresh list. So now when the activity is resumed every time we want to refresh list, so obviously we put this refresh list references in onResume. So what will happen every time when we minimize the application and put it into background, or every time we go to some different activity and get back to our main activity, onResume will be called. And every time they will be called to database and checking if there is some new data. And then the list will be rebuilt every single time. So let's create some new value. Let's create new reminder. And it's here. All right, 3-5 minutes to complete this. If something, just raise hand. And we keep working.
It just gives me those brightness.
It's not even this. Yeah. It's not like you don't set it by yourself. It's just some instrument for Studio which tells what this piece of code will do. So when you create the code release, you just, let's say, how to get this, how the code that goes here, it happens actually in the select lists. But you have some yeah.
Wait, maybe I want
Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it just like
Then you have to
any database you try to create again.
Because when you are saving
yeah, those these oh, so you import some of them, yeah. Oh, and then it Oh, it automatically. Yeah. Okay. 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 You don't have the product.
Do we have
Should be they added up.
Yeah.
No, there's not something there.
Maybe I have too many of those.
So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
But now it, yeah, there's nothing.
There's nothing in it. That's you have to add any right conditions to the manifest yourself. Yes.
Nope.
You don't have to add the right conditions.
What's wrong?
Because the data is saved, but when you read there,
Would there be something with the,
So you check the manual event goes to database and it's in database. But when you choose the result, can you show how it looks on the application side?
like,
Yeah. The reference.
I think at this point it's in a good conditions to balance when you
So how you manage the list view? Because if you have it here on the this one, are you sure that you have a list?
yes,
Where is it?
it should be here. There was before there was this cities and
Because
so let's see and so you say you don't need to do right conditions.
not even on the, if you're like developing on computer and you don't have full rights for the computer.
You don't need to call any specific permissions to reuse the database. Yeah, so it should work.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we handle that without it.
Yeah. All right, so let's continue. Another step that you want to do, you want to make this text, which on the right side, which represents the milliseconds from 1970s or 1980s, something like that. We want to make it to more user readable. So what we need to we need to unpack this code to human readable format. For that, we go to reminder adapter, and instead of simply calling item trigger to text using this time, we want to change it differently. So let's create if condition here and specify that if the list position time is not null, so for example, so if list position dot time is not null, then we want to unpack it and make it human readable. So we create a simple date format class. And we need to write the patterns in what we will show the text. So let's make it hours first, then minutes. Then we want to show the day of months. Then we want to show the months. And we want to show the year. Then we need to specify the time zone. Get default. And then we create a value named time, which refers to the amount of the seconds. The one that has been shown already in our case, it's list position.time. So it's this amount of seconds that has been shown before. And we make it to make it readable. So let's name it readable time, let's say. So we do call the simple date format. And we actually want to perform the formatting. And the parameter, we put our date in seconds here, time in seconds. So what does it do? We specify the pattern in what we want to show the hours, minutes, dates, and year. You can change the order. You can, for example, put the date first, hours and minutes later. So you create this, and then you just simply call format. So it gets the timestamp in milliseconds and unpack it and make it into readable format. Once we have this, we want to change the trigger message. So you select the row, item trigger. And for text, we push the readable date or readable time. What was it? Readable time. And we can remove this because we don't need this anymore, the previous one. Let's see how it looks. All right, you see that I have selected some date here, and now it's more readable. For example, if I select something for 8th February, let's say it's 10:30 p.m., some text here, and I save it to database. When it's shown here, you see that it's in readable format instead of having this weird milliseconds thingy. Another thing that I have already shown once again, we would have this kind of table in our case. So not every value will have time element, but some value will have location. That's why we created this time location check. So we check if the time is not null, then we show in something. If the time is null, we will have something like showing the location in that way. In that case, we would need to handle it differently. So if the list position time is not null, we do something here. Else, if it's actually null, then we have something location. We can show toast for now. No, it will not work that way. Wait a moment. Yeah, we need to put some text here. So for item trigger text, we can just put location here for now. Later on, we will change it. All right. So now we are able to create a new entries to our database by selecting time from here, by writing text here, and by clicking submit, it goes here. But we also need to be able to schedule schedule the task that will happen on the selected time. So we keep working. Is everyone following what we're doing now? So now go to time activity. So now when we click this create button, we also want to schedule something that will happen on that exact moment of time. So for that, we create another class into time activity. Sorry, not class, but function. So let's create private function. Let's name it set alarm, for example. So it will represent the actual time when we want to set something. And we want to have here two parameters. First parameter is time, which refers to the time when the alarm happens. And second one is message, which refers to string that we want to show. So for that, we will use the broadcast receiver and AlarmManager pair. You can see from the slides, it's just referring to official documentation, but still. Nowadays, there are many ways how we can schedule tasks in Android side, and the reason for that is that Android tries to optimize the power consumption and restricts from newer version. Android restricts to do some actions and make it more like user safe. So before, there were many solutions which are not working anymore on latest Android versions. For example, this AlarmManager that we are using today, it will not work on the latest Android version 10. It works, but it's not works persistently. And Android offers to use the, let's say, server-based solutions which are more safe in that way. But again, we're using the simplest one. So we're using the AlarmManager. You can just check if you're curious what happens behind this. But we are using the pair of AlarmManager and we're using the BroadcastReceiver. So how it works, the AlarmManager creates some tasks and BroadcastReceiver continuously listens for Android events. When some events happen, the BroadcastReceiver performs the action that is stated by ourselves what has to be done. So first, we want to create an AlarmManager. So let's do this. First, we create an intent. So create a value intent. So it's intent. Is the contents we can use this, which refers to time activity. And by clicking, no, not by clicking, but this should call reminder. Moment. So let's write reminder receiver here. It's not created yet, so it will highlight. But just to make it more consistent, so you create class.java. It's not exist yet, so it's underlined, but just keep forward. So we create an intent as the extras of intent, we want to put the message. So you use put extra, and with the key message, you put the actual message that comes from our reminder. Then we need to create a pending intent of type pending intent, get broadcast, this one intent, pending intent, like a one shot. So we have created 2 intents, and now we need to create alarm manager. So it's value manager. We get system service context dot alarm service as alarm manager. Then we do call for this manager, we call the event that should happen on exact moment of time. So we select set exact alarm manager RTC time. And we want to show something for user. So in user interface threads, we want to show the toast. Name it reminder is created. So what happens here? We have created a function that takes 2 parameters. First parameter is time in milliseconds. Second parameter is message. It's the actual message that we want to show to user. So we create the intent. Intent is this way of transmitting data from activity to activity. In our case, we send some data by using intent to reminder receiver. It's not created yet, but we will create it just a moment later. We put extra message here, which refers to the message that we have created with key message. So when the Android system will retrieve something with the key message, it will unpack it and show it to user. And then we create the alarm manager by exact exact moment of time. And as a parameter for that, we specify this time when this event should happen. We put our intent here just to have what kind of data we send in on that time. And in user interface, we show the toast, which simply tells that reminder was created. So we have this set alarm function, and we want to call it now when we save the reminder to the database. So in this time create button on click listener, we want to specify our set alarm method. So we simply, when we enter this to database, we simply call now set alarm, and we need to put 2 parameters here. First parameter is time. In our case, it's well, it can be reminder time, which have been used before. And second parameter is message. So you can just simply call reminder message. So when this happens, we'll get the time of the reminder and message of the reminder and schedule alarm at a specific moment of time with a specific message. This shows an error as well that this alarm should be this time for alarm, it should never be null, but in our case it can happen that it can be null because the database of ours is built in that way that we can push null. Just put double exclamation mark that specify that it's never null. We know from our design side that it will not happen that it will be null here from time activity. So for now, let's create this reminder class, which will listen for these events. So we need to create another class in our package. So you, again, right-click on the folder of our package and call new Kotlin class. And let's name it reminder receiver. We can select class here and create. So this reminder receiver will extend broadcast receiver. So when you create that, you will see that reminder receiver is underlined in red again. You put cursor here, click Alt Enter, and it shows how to resolve that problems. We see that we need to implement members of broadcast receiver. So you just hit Enter here, and you see that we need specify on receive, and you hit Enter once again. So what happens here? That this reminder receiver will listen into background for events that happening when we call it. And every time when we receive some event, we need to do some code here. So for now, again, to just make it simple, we can just show the toast. I will rename these elements again to make it more understandable. So first is context. Second is intent. You put cursor here, click Alt Enter. I can show once again. You put cursor here, click Alt Enter. It offers you to implement members. So you hit Enter again, and you hit Enter again to submit that you want to specify this on receive. Once it's here, it offers you to have context and intent. I'll just rename it to be more understandable. You can skip it. And now I want to show the message, the one that has been sent from here, the message that we sent with string. So I want to show it as toast. So I do call context toast. And inside here, I want to show some text. So how I do it? First, I want to retrieve the data from our intent. So I create an element of text. And from intent, I'm trying to unpack the string extras. So I call get string extra message. And once I do this, I show it here. What I'm doing wrong? You can remove these question marks from here. Like the constructor have question marks here by telling that context can be null sometime and it can be null sometime. From the way how we build it, we know definitely that will never be null. So you can remove these question marks. So we retrieve from intent the string here, and we just show the simply toast. You can put exclamation mark here as well. So once again, how it works. When we click the button, we retrieve the times from calendar. We retrieve the text from edit text message. So we know definitely that something exists, something will not happen in the past, but we schedule it for tomorrow or some time in future. And we write some text here, right? When we click submit button, we create a reminder, save it to database, and at the same time, we schedule something that will happen on future. So here we create an intent that sends this message to the system that it has to be shown at a specific moment of time. With this intent, we send this message. And when this time happens, when this reminder receiver is called, we receive that message from our application, and the system shows it in our desired way. In our case, we created just now the toast. But later on, you can make, for example, notification or whatever you want. You can open the application. I'm not sure if that's possible on latest Android sites, but anyway. And yeah, let's see how it looks. So let's schedule something just a minute later. let's put some text here. It's already 9:45, so let's put it for 9:46. So you click submit, it goes to the system, it schedules this event, and on 9:46, this text from here will be shown from the system. So I'll just minimize, and we need to wait a bit. In the meantime, you can see the code and copy paste it. All right, it's 9:46, but for some reason it didn't work. Let me check. Yeah, I think the problem is that the emulator that I'm using is, it's now the problem with API. So as I told, it happens sometime that due to latest Android restrictions, not every single event happens. Yep. Let's see. So it's for 9:47 now scheduled. And
I see some
error here. Oops. Input stream. Yep. I think in some context passing. But anyway, so how it works once again. So we specify the alarm on specific moments of time, and later we have this reminder receiver which checks for the times, and when the times come, it shows some message depending on what we want. So for now we made this toast. It didn't work, but it should. Unfortunately in the lecture, so we don't have time to check what's wrong. But from the next session, Kennedy will show you how the geofencing works, and you will decide what to show here. I guess it will be just notification, and you would have time to double check what's wrong here later on the next session. Don't worry about that.
Before you stop for the day, would it be possible for the end of the stream that you just quickly go through all the files we've been working on?
Yep, sure. Let me just finish with homework. So quick recap what we have done today. So we have created this time activity which saves the entry to database. We have updated the list view in our main activity, so it shows the actual data from database. And by saving this time activity, we schedule an alarm in future, and we set up broadcast receiver. I know what the problem is. Yeah, for now. Every single broadcast receiver has to be registered in manifest. Yeah, I haven't done it, so the system don't know what to listen and what have to actually listen for these events. So we need to specify in manifest. We go to manifest. You have manifest folder here, Android manifest.xml. And you need to create a receiver here, which named reminder receiver. Once you've done it, it should work, I hope. Let's see. So I put it
Can
for
those backup? Yeah, but can those be?
yeah. This receiver can be in any order. So this manifest, as I told, it shows just the map of the all the elements that exist on the application. So we see 3 activities here so far, 4 activities, no 3, and we have this receiver. So now I hope it will work. Let's see. Yeah, you see, at 9:51 there were toasts that showing the message. Later on, Kennedy will show you how to build notifications. So this notification will pop up on the top, and it will not disappear as soon as the toast was. But still, luckily we got it working. So now about homework. Let's see. So the homework is same as always. You just implement what have been done during today. You push it, and that's it. Initially, I was planning also to implement a deleting reminder by clicking. I know it's a bit too much, so I'll just remove it from here. So the task is you create the design of time activity, you save the values to database, you show these values by getting these from database in our list view, and you create AlarmManager and BroadcastReceiver pair, which creates a scheduled event, and then this event happens. So just this stuff that we have created today, you push changes again to GitHub, you turn in homework 4 in Moodle by just typing something here. So we will see that you have done it. Don't worry about that. I will fix it. I will remove. You don't need to make click events. We'll move these click events to the last session 7, I think. If you would have time, let's just make it optional. It's fine. It was quite much stuff for today. And yeah, the recording of the session will be available here. So same as all lectures, the lab 4 will be here. So if something goes unclear, you just can open the video and follow the code by it. Or if you have questions, contact us, we'll help. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just that you could. Would it be possible that you show?
Yep.
Not all files, but all the important files. Just quickly, because we can always pause the video.
Yeah, sure. So once again, what we have for now, we have this main activity. It's the file from where we start, and it's this activity which opens on opening. It have these 2 buttons. One's to create the time reminders. Second is for create location-based reminders. These location-based reminders will be implemented starting from the next session, next Tuesday. This time, reminders was created by today. So correspondingly, we have here main activity, we have map activity, which is for next Tuesday, and we have time activity, which represents the user interface.
Can you open the import list as well?
Yep. Well, I know that some of you have the problems with imports. Not everyone is importing. Probably it's missing from my side. Sorry about that. For example, we want to create a button. Let's name it button 1. When you specify the type of the element that you want to write, so for example, you want to create a button. Once you selected it, if you click enter, this import will happen here, you see? So again, when I write something and I highlight it, I click enter and it goes here. So you don't have to do import line every time. If you just hit enter and on the selected, it goes automatically. So for the time activity, this time activity represents the activity interface that we have created, and it works with time create button. It sets alarm. So these three refers to activities. Also, we have two files for databases. One represents the table, the queries to the table. Another one represents the database and lists all the tables here. In our case, it's just one table. What else? Reminder adapter is the class that unpacks the data that comes from the database. In our case, we parse the list of reminders here, and we show the we need to show something to user side. So we inflate row every time these rows that you see on the screen, and we push some parameters, some data to these entries. And I think that's the last one. This reminder receiver is the one that represents what should happen on the specific events on the smartphone side. So we schedule something with reminder receiver. We call it from here by intent. And when this call happens on exact moment of time, in our case, something happens on user side. So you show notification, you show test, whatever. So that's about the classes that we have. We also have these layout elements for ones per activity. We have ones that represents the list view item XML. It's actually the view how the row looks. And the manifest is created by default. It just lists everything that's onto our application.
Could you please scroll through the longer XML files as well?
Yep. So this for activity main. 3 buttons here, list view. This for activity map, it's empty for now. And this for activity time pickers, date pickers, edit text here button. You don't need to have XML exactly as it's on my sites, because, well, many parameters are just changeable. What makes sense is just this ID, because we use it in main activity, in time activity, and so on. The rest can dependent on your site. You can build as the UI whatever you want. You can change the order, you can change the sites, colors, whatever. Yep, that's it.
Can you please explain about the final project
Yep. So, so for now we have, it was lab 4 today. We will have 3 more labs till 23rd of February or something like that, 25th I think. After that, we will not have lectures anymore. We will not have labs anymore. So the whole March and the whole April, you will have time to build your own application. You can do whatever you want. And the deadline for final submission is something like 4th May, so 3 months from today. During this 2 months, like March and April, you will be able to build the application. You can do it by yourself, by alone. You can do it in a groups. Group is allowed to be up to 4 persons. And yeah, during that time, you just build the application, and at the end point, you submit the application code. You submit on the way, you submit some high fidelity UIs and drawing designs and so on. And so when the May starts, you submit the code, you submit the 1-minute video how the application looks, and that's it. So your grade consists of 2 parts. One from homeworks, half from homeworks, half from the project. So if you pushed all the changes, all the homeworks, you get 50 out of 100, so 50 points for that. And you can pass the course with it. I think we need to double check on this, but still, like, you can get the course passed if you just have this.
Yesterday, he mentioned about the project
Yep.
related to cancer detection. And is there only just this project?
No. It was just one option what you want. It was just one idea.
There's only one option, not other.
No. The application that you will develop, you can do whatever you want.
No, I mean the project that Denzel offers.
Well, for now, it was just one offer. Usually, we don't have any offers at all. We just let the students to do whatever they want. It was just some need from researchers that they're interested in this kind of project and they want to offer you. Probably they provide some guidance, but I'm not sure. I don't know. It's,
for example, in my case, because I'm based at Kotlin,
yes.
So can I, for example, join the project?
Yeah, but it's better to discuss with Denzel. So if you come next session, next Monday, and just ask Denzel, because I'm not sure how this works. Ask him. Most likely you will be able to join because it will be dedicated to one group at least. Maybe different groups can also make it. But still.
It has only its own includes also collecting data or something, or it's just about writing the code?
I cannot say, but usually it's just writing the code. So the way how it happens that some people from site comes and they interested in something. So they outsource the application development to groups. People do this, and then some research happens. If you're interested to do some research, you can negotiate maybe with them and keep working on the same research project. But I'm not involved in that project at all, and I don't know how the procedures go. I know at least that you will develop the applications. What goes further, it has to be clarified later on. Yeah. I think we're done for today.